My name is Dreenagh. My youngest daughter is profoundly and multiply disabled, and my experiences with her led me to change careers about 10 years ago, and I'm now a research doctor, and I do a lot of work at the moment for NHS improvement, NHS England improvement I should say, learning disability, and I've gone out as an expert by experience on a lot of reviews. I've also done work for the CQC doing a lot of inspections of care homes, and I now do what they call deep dive reviews, where we review hospital trusts and local authorities. What really does concern me is that over this past 10 years of austerity, the cuts that are disproportionately affecting disabled, and I should say low income stroke poor families the most, it's just reached a point of horror. I can't believe journalists are not holding Tory politicians at every instant to account for the fact that you go anywhere in England and you see so many homeless people. This is appalling and shocking. The fact that somehow that climate of austerity has been allowed to take hold and is now normalised. It's now normalised because of programmes like whatever they called it, Benefit Street, and now somehow we, the victims of austerity, are somehow seen as to blame for it. I find that appalling. What is making me scream at the radio and television every time I hear it, the NHS is not for sale. They know very well the partial backdoor, what I call backdoor privatisation of the NHS that's been taking place for a long time. Basically PFI, which is Private Finance Initiative, that started under Major. But when the new Labour project started with Tony Blair, Mr. Blair was a believer in the markets, but I don't know if people remember this and his third way. I don't really understand it. I think he thought it was kind conservatism. The bottom line was, though, it was neoliberal in intent, because it's all about the markets will sort this out. If we allow private business to come into it, they're going to put in so much, they're going to do so much. They do what they want to do. They do what's going to make them a profit. So I'm not really clear how using PFI as a blanket approach is good. It's a bit like saying, let's leave everything to the markets will sort everything. And in fact, let's make things really work for the people at the top, and then the goodness will trickle down to the people at the bottom. We all know that's been discredited. So the actual PFI has just meant that people have been lumbered with massive repayment. The cost of the repayment, I think, on PFIs is way beyond, what was that loan shark company that they called? You know, the Friday payday loans. It's like that, but writ much bigger for huge amounts of hospitals and God knows what. But again, that's what I keep saying. People think, when they say the NHS, what does that even mean? The NHS is hospitals, you've got services, you've got medical staff, what else? Drugs. You've got all these different aspects is what I'm trying to say. So there's not one entity that is the NHS that you could just go, there it is, that's for sale, do you want to buy it? And they know that. And that's why they kind of tried to shape the narrative of the discussion by this soundbite, the NHS is not for sale, which is a ridiculous, it's as empty as get Brexit done. This has been happening since the days of Thatcher. And I think it's this guy called Clive Pedal, P-E-D-E-L, on Twitter, who did a fantastic thread about this. And it just shows how, you know, it's what they've done with the railways. It's what they've done with South Lambeth Estate. If you underfund and you don't maintain, something's going to fall into disrepair. The state of the NHS that has been underfunded for so long. We've had 9 years of this. Prior to that, if you remember, we can all criticise Tony Blair about taking us to war. However, he did get hospital waiting times down. Now, you can't even make the appointment. It's not that there's a long waiting time. You cannot get an appointment. You can't get a new knee now. They've told me I'm too young. I'm not young. I'm 66. They'll just wait until I cannot walk. So it's all this kind of, what you're saying, it is death by 1,000 cuts. Because if we don't fund, if we underfund, and then you're trying to bring in these little layers, like they're saying people who join Bupa. So that gets you cited to the top of the queue. So those people think if we got rid of the NHS that it'd be like a Bupa thing. It's not going to be like that. It'd be a lot more expensive if it gets like America. What terrifies me about the NHS in the hands of the Conservatives and being used in negotiations with America. I was visiting America, I think it was about 9 or 10 years ago, and I happened to be there when the congressional hearings were looking into the medical insurance companies, because this was a preamble to when they were trying to bring in Obamacare. And what was really nakedly clear from those hearings was how if you have significant health impairments, they just don't insure you. If you actually develop a significant health impairment or a health issue whilst you've been insured for years, you suddenly develop a health issue, they just cut you off. They will not insure you. So I'm terrified because, of course, my daughter has profound, multiple and, congenital health issues. I think anybody who thinks that it's not being slowly creepingly privatized, they have not been to a hospital. It's when you have regular experience of various hospitals. I've been to hospital trusts all over the country, so I can see this isn't just one area, one thing. This is about slow creeping, what we call backdoor privatization. I find it really odd when people talk about the cult of Corbyn. One minute they say he's a cult and anyone would follow and believe in anything. Then on the other hand, they say that he's not a good speaker or he can't hold his own. They all go on about the Andrew Neil interview. Well, I think he's done quite well in Parliament when week after week after week he has been relentlessly, and there's not just Parliament, there's all sorts of analysis that's been done that shows he is the most smeared politician. So against that, he's managed to say, I don't do personal attacks, I'm not getting into this. So I don't understand where the cult bit comes in. Where is the cultishness? Do they all meet on his allotment? And I don't know, share jam making recipes or something. I think what people find difficult about Corbyn is that he is actually ordinary. He's quite ordinary. They all go on about this great £2 million house or something, but it's a house in Islington that he's lived in for years. So of course, I've got people who live in Peckham who tell me about the house being worth £2 million. He has a way, and this again goes into his leadership, and I believe in this. I think this is a good style of leadership because he travels up and down the country, not just for election period. He travels up and down the country talking to, and I'm going to say it, ordinary, well, I think of them as extraordinary, but quite extraordinary people. He talks to people and then he takes on board what they've said. Now, to take on board, as an example, the WASPy women, which is about the women who had their state pensions stolen off them for up to 6 years without due notice. The fact that he recognizes that as something that was absolutely wrong and an injustice and says, we're going to add that in. He's attacked for that. Why is he attacked for it? Because he's supporting something that happened to ordinary people. Isn't a cult is where you pay someone money and you make life-changing decisions based on that. Now, the closest, therefore, where you pay someone money would surely be this new Brexit organisation. It's not a political party. Is it their CEO? Is Nigel Farage the director or something? So people all paid money to join that because he told them they were all going to be fielded as candidates, and then he said he wasn't going to field them. So that's more cultish to me than here's a man who doesn't go to the gutter to sling insults, who actually listens to people and who is ethical. I don't get what's wrong about that. So this business that people keep saying, and this is again, I've asked people, I had a long thread because people were saying to me in response to the chief rabbi who said Jeremy Corbyn in particular is a danger. So I was asking these people, what is it about Jeremy Corbyn in particular, just Jeremy Corbyn, that you find dangerous? And they said to me, because he's a friend of terrorists. And I said, hold on, when you say friend, do you mean when he addressed Hezbollah? That's right, he introduced them as my friend. I use the term my friend. It's a way of being polite to people. Why is that seen that means he is about to wreak jihad with Hezbollah upon Israel, which is the way it was being presented by this chief rabbi? It's not. It's just him trying to be polite.
Or trying to negotiate with them.
Well, yeah, exactly. What is this idea that everybody has to be a hard man? Everyone has to be a liar. Everybody has to be... This is what this woman was saying, that in order to get anywhere, you've got to play dirty. No, actually. Why? The world is not in a good place because of everybody playing dirty. Surely in order to negotiate anything, how did the Irish peace process come about? That was negotiated. That was by sitting down. And by the way, the Queen, plenty of members of the Conservative Party have all shaken the hand of Martin McGuinness and Gerry Adams. So this whole thing about it's only Labour who are friends of IRA. No, it's not. And they're not friends. They're negotiating a stance. You have to talk to people to negotiate. You can't negotiate by sticking a gun or by bombing them. And actually, people who are people who are really good commentators and really good historians who will sit and talk and they'll say, what you've got now is a treaty in Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement is a treaty, and it is securing peace, but it's a fragile peace. And the fact that they have been treated in such a slipshod way in terms of this supposed negotiation between Boris Johnson and the EU, where he's just blithely talking about it'll be no checks from England into Ireland, but only a paper check on Ireland. You know, none of that pays heed to the fact that the point about what you've got in Ireland now, it's an idea in people's heads. It's the fact that they've all agreed to this idea that there is no border. Now, if you start having some kind of tariff or negotiation, suddenly it all becomes there and us. So suddenly you do have ideas of borders coming back. And if I bring this up, I know there are people who will scream, you're doing whataboutery. I don't understand how somebody can say Jeremy Corbyn is a dangerous anti-Semite and at the same time can support someone who has clearly demonstrated. We haven't seen a demonstration of Corbyn's bigotry, but if you're calling someone a friend is a bigot, I don't understand. Is bigotry, I don't get. But we've seen so much from Johnson over the years. It's this horrible colonialist. Do you know how many sons and daughters of colonialists there are in that Tory cabinet? Most of them. So there's so many of them have got this horrible colonialist approach to people. They actually use terms like pickaninny. Boris Johnson wrote a book where he used the word negroid. I mean, in this day and age, surely someone should be questioning. Why is no journalist questioning why he thinks it's acceptable to, it's just a joke, about bum boys? Why is bum boys a joke? Why is letterbox? Why is that considered a joke? But if someone else said it, it's considered a hate crime. Why is he allowed to get away with outrageous comments that are sexist, racist, and homophobic? No one challenges him. Everything I said before was nothing. What you need to do is buy this crossword puzzle. Now, if you follow him on Twitter, @ColdWarSteve, and he does a wonderful running commentary on the whole exit from Europe shambles that we now call Brexit. And part of it is an advent calendar, which I have. Every so often little knickknacks, and this fabulous 1,000-piece crossword, where all the profits, bless them, all the profits go to somewhere like Shelter or some sort of charity. But my point is, we have wonderful things like this to take our mind off, the shambles that's coming. I would hope Oh, I do. So I ultimately believe in humanity, and I do believe that people are socially responsible. And I don't believe everybody's a sociopath. That's too easy. I don't believe everything's a conspiracy. That's too easy. I think there's so much ineptitude and ugliness out there, and arrogance and entitlement. And we know where the entitlement is, and we know where the arrogance is, and we know where the ugliness is, and we need to vote it out. And I hope more than anything that people will do that. I'm optimistic. So I may be coming for a huge crash on the 13th, or hopefully, like my neighbour, who was very much a pro-Brexit person, and who then has been saying to me, this isn't a referendum, this is an election, and what people need to do is vote Labour to end austerity. And that's what I think they should do.